Hey everyone, I am Chef Nick. You are watching Home Cooking with Chef Nick, and today I'm going to be making flaky pie dough. I love making quiche Lorraines at home. I love making pecan pies. I love making custards and tarts and all that fun stuff. And I like to make my own flaky pie dough to put them in because it's the best way to do it. So to make flaky pie dough, you're going to need 4 ingredients. I got 25 ounces of bread flour sifted, 21 ounces of cold unsalted butter, cubed. Make sure it's cold. That is key to know. 2 teaspoons of salt. And I got some ice water here, and we're going to strain out 2/3 of a cup of ice water. All right, so you want to start by taking your 25 ounces of bread flour. Make sure it is sifted. I'm going to go ahead and add our 2 teaspoons of salt. Whisk that together. After that, we're going to add our 21 ounces of cold cubed butter. And you're going to work it together by hand. Once you get it covered in flour, you want to start pinching the butter with your hands. And you want it to become just a little larger than the size of a pea. That's how you want to incorporate the butter into the flour. This will take a few minutes. All right, so you've been mixing it for a little bit. And you can see this is kind of the texture you want. A lot of the pieces of butter are just a little bit larger than a pea size. You're going to have a couple pieces that are a little bit bigger. You're not going to get every single piece that way, but as long as the majority of your butter pieces are just a little bit larger than a pea, that's exactly where you want to be. And then what we'll do here is add our 2/3 cup of our water. You want to mix this just until it turns into a dough. You do not want to overmix it. See, that little bit of water is really going to go a long way. I like to do kind of a folding method. Just kind of pick it up, push it back down, so you're kind of folding it from the front of the bowl to the back. Push down, and as you pick it up, you can get a little bit more of it. Okay, now we have our dough mixed together. What we're going to do is we're going to divide it up into 2 parts and wrap it up in saran wrap and refrigerate it for about 1 to 2 hours. So the dough can get nice and cold and rest. So I'm just going to take a little bit of flour here just so it doesn't stick to the counter. The best way is to weigh it so you can get even parts, because this is going to yield 4 pie shells. So that's 3 pound, 1 ounce. Perfect. All right. Now I just like to flatten it out myself. It'll take a little less time to harden in the refrigerator. You only want to use minimal amounts of flour right now. Minimal amounts. As you can tell, you can barely even see it on there. And I already have 2 pieces of saran wrap ready to go. Again, just kind of flattening it out to give myself a jump start on rolling it, and it'll take less time to cool to its firmness in the refrigerator. Just like that. Get my flour out of here. Fold it over once, twice. Make sure it's nice and tight. Now we're going to put these in the refrigerator for 1 to 2 hours until they're nice and firm. And then we're going to take them out, roll them, put them in the pie pans, and par bake them. All right, now that we let the dough rest for about an hour and a half, 2 hours in the refrigerator, it's nice and firm. We're gonna go ahead and roll it out to about 1/8 of an inch thick and fill our pie dough crust. Now, one key here is not to use too much flour. Part of the reason that it is a very nice and flaky pie dough crust is because of the flour to butter ratio. If you remember, the recipe called for 25 ounces of bread flour to 21 ounces of butter. If you start putting too much flour in there, it's not going to be as flaky as it should be. And the key to rolling this out is always start in the center of the dough and push away or pull it toward you. So that way you can get as even as possible. I'm going to roll this out to 1/8 of an inch thick. Okay, now that we got it rolled out about 1/8 of an inch thick, I take my pie pan here, put it upside down, and I'm going to cut about 1 inch outside of the edge. Now this dough plus the little piece that fell off earlier is going to be used to make a second pie crust. And now one of the best ways that I find to put this into the pan, to fold it in half. And unfold it. If it gets a little messed up, it's okay, because we could just piece it back together. If you have any holes or cracks, you can just take a little bit of the dough, push it in there. The amount of butter that's in there, just a little bit of pressing with your fingers will kind of piece it back together or glue it back together. All right, now we got the pan filled up. I'm just going to trim off a little bit of the excess on the sides here. I just like using a little paring knife myself. All right, and then before we bake this off, we're going to let it rest in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes. Okay, so we just let our pie crust rest in the refrigerator for 30 minutes in the pie pan. Now it's time to get it ready to bake. So we got our oven preset to 425 degrees. We're gonna take a fork and we're gonna just poke a couple holes in the bottom of the pie pan, or the pie dough, excuse me. But you don't wanna go all the way through. You kind of just wanna tap the end of the fork in there, just like that. And what that is gonna do is gonna kind of help the bottom from bubbling up, and it's going to aerate a little bit. So it's a process called docking. So we're just going to go ahead and do that just on the bottom of the pie crust, something like that. Next, we're going to take a piece of parchment paper and gently just kind of put it in. A lot of bakers will put pie weights in there, or instead of buying pie weights, they could put some dried beans. That works as well. I happen to have an excess of rice, so I'm just going to pour some rice in here. And what this is going to do is also weigh down the pie crust, so it also does not bubble up, not only on the bottom but on the sides as well. So it'll stay nice and flat, something like that. Just have it nice and evenly distributed on the bottom, and it also is against the sides. And now we're ready to bake. So we're gonna put it in the oven for 425 degrees, and we're gonna bake it for about 7 to 10 minutes until it's very light golden brown. All right, so we just baked our pie crust at 425. One reason I like to par bake my pie crust is depending on the application. So if I'm gonna be cooking maybe a quiche or maybe a pecan pie or something that doesn't take too long to bake, maybe 30 minutes or under, I like to par bake it so I get a nice product, and then the dough cooks properly and thoroughly with that particular application. If I was gonna make like an apple pie, then I wouldn't par bake it because that takes a little longer to bake, usually about 45 minutes to an hour. So we got 7 minutes here, and I'm gonna go ahead and just take out our parsnip paper and rice, golden brown, light golden brown with the crust. You can see it kind of just started cooking a little bit. The bottom's gonna be a little under, that's fine. And when we put in our filling to whatever we're gonna bake, that will just continue cooking and it'll be nice and flaky and delicious, crispy and amazing. So that is our flaky pie dough recipe. And if you like this video and want to learn more recipes and techniques by Chef Nick, please hit the like and subscribe buttons and also hit the bell if you want to get notified when we have new videos. See you next time.